Hi everyone, it's Sandra and this is Peekaboo, and I'm just doing a very quick check-in. It's been 8 days since I've been in here. I have to put that somewhere safe. I'm going to check to see if any visible food, and if no visible food, I will add food. And secondly, as you know, I did a video, and I'll put the link up on the screen. Well, the link will be in the description, but the picture of the video will be up on the screen. There's the little guy hanging out. I did a video that talked about frequency of feedings and how that promotes worm health. And I'm trying to feed more frequently. So let's see what they look like after only 8 days. They've been outside, they've got a leaf. They're obviously eating through this burlap like nobody's business. Okay, so that may very well. Cinderella her burlap succumbed to the worms, and it's now buried to be eaten totally. And this cover is rapidly going to follow in the same suit. See some drying around the edges. We're into our warmer temperatures. And so I imagine that I'm going to continue to see that through the summer as these bins spend some time outdoors. Here's that dense corrugated cardboard that I added, I think it was 2 or 3 feedings ago. Worms are taking a long time to get through it, even though it's now being buried, and I can feel even through my gloved hand that, well, I guess I can see some dryness in there, but certainly the edges are moist. So some corrugated cardboard takes longer. I'm feeling some compression of the castings as I get closer to the bottom. I'm having to wear a gloved hand again because moving has caused a lot of little nicks and scratches on my fingers. If you ever used one of those tape guns, you know what I've been through. I think we're up to over 550 boxes packed. It's got to be a record. But when you're packing up a home and garden of 35 years, that's what it takes. So, I mean, we just have to pause for a moment and appreciate what a good-looking worm bin this is, at least in my opinion. But yeah, for a bin that gets a lot of chunky stuff, it's turning out, with my building up the bedding strategy over the last few feedings, it's kicking out a lot of really nice vermicompost. But I don't see, after 8 days, I'm not seeing any food in this end. Just some lovely fluffy castings. Let's go take a look at this feeding, and I can just tell by the unfinished newspaper and everything down there that this is where I fed. But I'm just going to flip it right over and let's take a look. See what we see here. Okay, so still some tamale. That's one thing I'm going to regret about leaving Victoria, is we're leaving the fellow that hand makes these tamale and sells them at our local market. That's a shame. Okay, so here's a clump of paper with a worm that's going a bit nutso there. But yeah, look at the worms just embedded into this paper. Patrick from Vermicompost Learn by Doing said, he's trying to resist the clumpiness of napkins and everything. Obviously, I didn't do a good job because I just layered all this newspaper in there. But, look at the worms into it. The worms are having a multi-story party in here. Just going into all the layers. Now, this is newspaper, so not cardboard, but it's moist. So where the moisture is, the worms are. Okay, let me just flip that. So no sign of food on that, just still worms aggregating around the newspaper. But let me dig some more, see what else we can find. That obviously a piece of plastic, worms on it, baby worm. Okay, just a piece of plastic. I leave the plastic in the bin until it's thoroughly cleaned off. And it, in these conditions where I'm, worried that, I might not have got to my worms as regularly as before, having a bit of plastic in the bin actually just helps with moisture retention. So I don't mind it. So I'll put this old newspaper down and the old tamale wrapper down the bottom. Again, I'm just looking for signs of food. We see signs of activity. The worms are not cruising throughout, so there must be still more food in this area. It's just, at the moment, not visible. So let me put the plastic down. There's the big geranium. Obviously, that's a interaction with the microbes, and the chemistry of the bin has turned the stems that bright orange. More tamale. You can see how the corn husk just gradually turns into a series of strings. Okay, more newspaper. I've been using up newspaper as my carbon source when I can't access leaves. We don't have cardboard at the moment. Did I mention we have over 550 boxes that are packed? So every scrap of cardboard has been going to the packing. All right. So again, these are more tamale strings. Oh, that's a hydrangea. See the lovely fluffy flowers of the hydrangea. Little tiny worm in there, several of them. I think that's part of the reason there's another hydrangea that this bin is so light and fluffy is because I fed quite a few hydrangea heads. And my goodness, they obviously introduce a lovely balance between air and moisture. Okay, so I'm not seeing a concentration of food. I don't, and so there you go. So after 8 days, the population in this bin has totally depleted the food I gave them, which is a sign that you feed again. Now, had I just left this bin for another 2 weeks, according to the research, that would have caused the worms to slow down their reproduction and slow down their behavior. They would have become, they wouldn't be nutrient deficient because, bedding is food, but apparently the more nutrition available, the more active the worms. Well, I am seeing signs of life, or of reproduction there. So that's good. All right, so let me go grab some food. And I've got a bit of an unusual challenge for the worms today. It's not going to be a fast food, and it's an experiment. And if it doesn't work, well, I will, be no further behind than I would be if I simply didn't feed the bin in the next 7 or 8 days or so, because I assume that's how long it's going to take for me to get back into this beautiful fluffy bin. Okay, so let me show you something I found at the back of my pantry. So there you go. It's a wild mushroom mix, gourmet mix of mushrooms. They're all dried up. Oh, see these fine particles? I think the worms will get into those. I could have put them into a coffee grinder. They're dry enough that I can break them into smaller bits even with my fingers. But no, they're not breaking easily. They look like apple slices, but they are gourmet dried mushrooms. And they're years old. And so I thought we would try that. And I'll just put a little bit of eggshell on top of that. And I just want a little bit of new carbon. Afraid it's more newspaper, folks. There we go. But now, we'll just see. Do the worms take care of those dried mushrooms, or will I have to put a moist feeding on top of them to get the worms interested in them? Boy, can I ever smell the fungal smell of those mushrooms. So to the extent that introducing fungus to your worm bins, remember the video I did on that? Trying to get your worm bin more fungal dominant is a very good thing. So maybe by feeding dried mushrooms, I'm doing just that. I got a little piece of paper here. I guess it's not going to quite go all the way across. Yeah, just there. I think that's better than the other option. Hopefully that will equalize some of the moisture onto that newspaper. Don't think this bin is on a little bit on the dry side for the task that I've given it. All right, everyone. Bye for now.